Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty, he had a great fall. And all the king's horses and all the king's men, they couldn't put poor old Humpty back together again.
Did you ever break something so badly that it just couldn't be fixed, no matter what you did? And like that old nursery rhyme about Humpty Dumpty, is it possible that what man has broken so badly, our rivers, our wetlands, our ecosystems, and the many species that inhabited our Earth, that we can't put them back together again? Gee, I hope not. Hi, I'm Ranger Chuck Arding with the John H. Chafee Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor. And I certainly hope that things aren't too far gone to put our environmental world back together again. But I'm an optimist, and fortunately, so are a lot of other people. People from all ages and all walks of life who are bound and determined and truly believe that they can put Humpty Dumpty back together again. So join me as we explore three very specific examples of people helping fix our environmental woes. From blue-spotted salamanders to dragonflies to river herrings, Blackstone Valley people are helping Mother Nature's critters survive. What am I doing? What does it look like I'm doing? This is a salamander crossing. We got moose crossings and deer crossing and bear crossings and even turtle crossing, so it's about time the salamanders had their rights too. More importantly, this is to help salamanders on Big Night get across the road. Now, just what is Big Night? Well, tell you what, we're going to catch up with Ranger Dan Maharg, a whole bunch of volunteers here at the Blackstone Valley who have great concerns about getting these little critters across the road safely on Big Night.
And we're particularly concerned because this pool that's over here is very close to a very busy road. And sometimes the salamanders that live in that direction have to cross this road and to get to this pool here in order to breed. And so we want to try, we have buckets ready if the salamanders are trying to cross the road, because many of them get run over when they're trying to go from the road to the pool. And meanwhile, what we're doing right now is we're just searching the rim of this pool just to see if tonight is the night when the salamanders are coming out and heading to the pool. It usually happens on a rainy night in March when it's about 40 degrees. And as you can tell from my breath, it's pretty chilly tonight. So while we have a hard rain, which is good, it may be a little bit too cool for the salamanders. This is our devoted group here, so we're checking it out on the first rainy night in March to see if the salamanders are on the march. What the salamanders are doing here is they're heading to the Congress. And the Congress is a big clump of male salamanders, all in a big blob. It's about this big. And the girls swim over, the females swim over to the Congress to choose their mates. And if they see a male they like, they tap on it, and they get it to swim away from the group. And then they lay their eggs together. So I'm not sure if we're looking at males or females, but my guess is that maybe we're looking at females down there because they're not forming any clump. Well, now we do have a clump forming right there. And that may be the start of a congress going on right in front of us.
We saw 3 of those already.
Now let's see if this other one comes and joins the group there. Mm-hmm. That may actually be the beginning of the congress right in front of our eyes there.
Whoa, look at them all. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So, kids, which do you think are the coolest, the wood frogs or the salamanders?
Salamanders.
Why are the salamanders coolest?
Because they're lizards.
Does they look like lizards?
Yeah. Use what?
No problem.
Use what?
I got it.
Maybe that's Carly.
So this is what Big Night is all about. We have groups of volunteers checking the pools to see if salamanders and wood frogs are there, and also checking the roads to see if we can help assist the wood frogs and salamanders across the road to their pools. We've had so far tonight a couple assists of wood frogs across the road, and we're going to keep searching. We've got lots of people and lots of flashlights, and we'll just keep looking and seeing if we can help out. And our signs will help slow down the cars.
We're here a month after Big Night, and we're with Ranger Dan Maharg, who orchestrated a lot of pools, vernal pools being checked to make sure that the critters got across the streets okay. And Dan, why don't you tell us a little bit about this project to begin with?
We found out that in the Blackstone Valley there are a lot of roads with pools near them, and as the creatures were getting run over, there were less and less creatures breeding in the pools. And so we thought, well, here's something people can do to help salamanders and wood frogs. And so we had people come out on rainy nights in March and help salamanders and wood frogs cross the road to get to their pools so they could breed.
That was pretty exciting because these pools are very important from an environmental perspective, aren't they?
Yeah, you see all the leaves in the pool here? Well, the salamanders, they live off of creatures that are eating the leaves. Then the salamanders, once they crawl out of their pools, once they get legs and lungs and crawl out of the pools, they go into the forest, and then there are animals, birds in particular, that eat the salamanders. So in some ways you could say that the salamander is carrying the energy that's in the pool, these dead leaves start the energy, back to the forest again, so they complete the cycle. They're a little bit like salmon and herring and shad because they return to the pool where they were born. And when they come back to their pools each year, they lay eggs, and then they crawl out of their pools, and they live most of the rest of their lives, wood frogs and salamanders, back in the woods in underground burrows and under the leaves. And they only return to their birth pool once a year to breed. And they live to be over 20 years old, so they come back each year to lay more eggs.
And one of the things man has done is kind of put highways and roads and streets that gets in the way of that. And so your kids were out here, and actually it was a mixture of individuals, wasn't it?
Right. It was volunteers from all over the valley. Actually, Allison McDeedy from the Community Pollution Prevention Project did a great job recruiting and calling all the volunteers to various spots throughout the valley. We had groups in Burrillville and Grafton, Uxbridge, North Smithfield. And we had a group leader meet each group at a roadside near a pool. And we showed them the pools. Then we helped the wood frogs and the salamanders get across the road to the pools.
So Dan, here a month later, we can see evidence of those frogs and salamanders out here because some of their egg sacs are starting to hatch.
Right, yeah, the wood frogs have laid their eggs like a month ago, and they are the first ones to hatch out. In fact, that clump that we're going to take a look at in a moment has a group of wood frog egg cases and a salamander egg case. And the wood frogs are hatching out even as we speak.
That's great.
And they're on a race against time, both the salamanders and the wood frogs, because believe it or not, this pool is going to dry up by summertime. So those salamanders have to get legs, get lungs, get out of the pool and into the woods before, probably August when this pool dries. For the last 18,000 years, salamanders have had to deal with droughts, floods, sudden snowstorms, ice storms, all kinds of things that happen in the crazy weather that we have in the spring. And so they're used to dealing with these sudden upsets. If they all get wiped out one year, well, then they'll come the next year and try again. And they've been able to keep their populations lasting from year in to year out, despite these sudden changes. It's really humans and their roads and development that is really impacting the salamanders like they've never been impacted before.
Now, Dan, what do you think is the lesson that your volunteers, because they're young and old, are out here, learn from this process?
Well, I think two things. One is that people can actually see nature. These salamanders are, they're about 9 inches long. and they've got bright yellow spots and bright blue spots. And to know that on a rainy night you can actually go out and see interesting, fascinating creatures that don't live far away in a rainforest, that live right in a forest near you is fascinating. And that got people really excited. To hear the wood frogs quacking like ducks is something that I think blows people's minds, because they're not aware that a pool full of a quacking noise is not a duck, but rather thousands of breeding frogs in early or middle March. So that's exciting. And then the other thing that's exciting is when people think about helping animals, they oftentimes think, oh, we need to grab them and put them in cages, or we need to grab them and put them in an aquarium because then they'll be safe. Well, you don't have to do that. What you need to do is just simply be out here on a rainy night with a group of people with your safety gear on so you don't get run over, and be out here assisting that process of getting the salamanders and wood frogs across the road. So there's actually something you can do that is vital to helping these creatures survive in a pool like this.
So man has a role today in helping
Right.
a natural process take place.
Exactly. And it's a very beneficial role. We're not fiddling with nature or changing nature, we're simply assisting it.
Fine today. So look for the 12 spot. It should come back by. Yeah. Well, the other thing is a lot of them are perching on the loose stripe.
Here it comes.
Yeah, here he comes. Swing it back. See, they're defending territory.
Ooh, he got one. Whew. And you're probably wondering what I'm doing here as I'm catching dragonflies in the middle of the Blackstone River. Well, one of the greatest challenges we humans have is trying to understand the world we live in. For every action we take has an impact. And to understand these impacts, sometimes these little critters, these dragonflies, can help us understand that. Now today we're going to track down some of our good friends with the Nature Conservancy here in Rhode Island, Ginger Carpenter and Mary Weaver Rose, with our longtime great volunteer Todd McLish of the Blackstone Valley Electric, and try to understand what dragonflies can do for us. Now, what kind do I have here anyhow?
Oh, you've got a whitetail. Nice. We haven't caught that one yet.
Oh, I'm actually making a contribution here.
You are.
Well.
And if you bring him over, we can see why it's called a whitetail. Look at the top of the abdomen. See how bright white it is through there? See that?
Yeah, that's
It's
impressive.
A
A whitetail.
One of the common skimmers, and you'll find them in numerous habitats, ponds, swamps, rivers, streams. So it's quite an abundant species around.
Well, he doesn't want to get out of there, does he?
Well, see, they've got hooks on their legs and they just cling to that netting.
Okay.
And if you hold them by the underside of the thorax, you should spread
Wow.
out. And see
Look at that,
beautiful
Mary.
whitetail.
Yeah.
It's the only dragonfly in our area that has a single black flag on each wing and a bright white abdomen.
Mm.
And that's the male you're looking at.
Beautiful.
They really are beautiful.
Beautiful insect, yeah.
Just slip the wings over the back and slide them down. Nicely done. Right to your right. Watch out, I'm gonna swing. And I got it.
All right.
It's a catch. This is a
What do you
blue
got?
dasher dragonfly.
The 12-spot ginger?
No, I got a blue dasher.
Oh, cool.
This is called Pachydiplax. It's actually really beautiful. If you want to hold it,
Sure.
the best way to hold them is you can just hold them by the wings like that. They're really sturdy insects, unlike butterflies, but you can see the bright green eyes and the pale sort of on the top of the abdomen, it's a pale blue color. It's actually a really common species in our area. And it occurs in rivers and it occurs in ponds. They call them blue dashers because if you watch them enough, they just dash all over the place. Very fast flight. But they'll come back to a perch, and so that's how I got that one. They don't all come back to a perch.
Now, a lot of people think dragonflies bite.
Okay. Yes, and they have the apparatus to bite. Because they feed on insects, so they have to have chewing mandibles, which they have. However, biting insects are usually those that need blood for a meal, And this is a predator, so it feeds on those things that need blood for a meal. It feeds on mosquitoes and flies. So they do have the physical apparatus, and I've handled thousands of them in my career, and I've only been bitten once, and that's when I actually put my finger in its mouth. I wanted to see what it felt like. So. And it's just a little pinch, something that small wouldn't, but no. And I think people are assume that because of the long, slender abdomen that they might be a stinging insect, which they're not. They're incredibly valuable, obviously, as predators on mosquitoes and flies and the kinds of insects that we consider pests.
Right, so they're our friends.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They're our very good friends, in fact.
Now, your step here, you've captured this now. What would you like to do with it?
Well, for the atlas, the project that I have going, the Rhode Island Oneida Atlas, we're trying to document the occurrence of each species in each town of the state. And so if I have a gap in my data, in other words, if I don't have the blue dasher, also known as Pachydiplax longipennis, for Lincoln, I would take this back and preserve it, and it would go into the Atlas collection, which would forever document that species occurred not only in Lincoln, but right here on the Blackstone River.
Right.
So.
But you have this in your...
We have that for this river, and so we will most likely let this one go.
So I can let this
You
go.
can liberate that one, and if you want to try and set it up on your hand, it probably won't sit there very long, but as you can see, he's ready to go. He's raring to go. Oh, you get a little bit of, see, he's trying to get his wits about him now.
He says, why? What's going on here?
Yeah, that's nice. The dashers don't sit very long usually. Probably if you give him a little tap at the end of the abdomen, he'll take, he's getting ready.
There we go.
And off he goes.
So Ginger, the Atlas program you're working on, and its significance with dragonflies and what they can tell us about our environment. Can you explain a little bit about what the project is and how it works?
Sure. This is a statewide inventory program, and it's basically volunteer-based. So I have recruited a slew of volunteers. I trained 40 of them in March. And they are working to document dragonfly and damselfly occurrences at the township level in Rhode Island. So hopefully, it's a 5-year project. We're in year 2. We started in 1998. So hopefully by the time the 5 years is up, we will have what we believe is a good, complete inventory of the species that are here. We're trying to document occurrences of everything that occurs in a town, but we're also looking for specific hotspots of diversity and or locations which have endangered or rare species. There are certain species groups in dragonflies that are indicators of good water quality, and those are usually species which occur on pristine rivers, and so they require high oxygen content. And so we're looking at not only the common things in a statewide distribution, but an abundance, and we're looking for diversity hotspots which might help us to determine where we need to put our conservation dollars in the future and today.
Ginger, you mentioned how you've trained a lot of volunteers with this project. What do you hope the volunteers will do for you in the Nature Conservancy?
Well, the volunteers, I trained 40 this year in March 1999, and they are the ones that are gathering the data. And we can learn so much more in a much quicker way than if there were 2 or 3 people out there on the landscape. I want to contain this into as small a window of time as I can so that we can begin to apply what we've learned to our conservation actions.
It's also interesting to point out that there are volunteers that are assigned to different communities throughout the state.
Correct.
I, for instance, cover Burrville and North Smithfield and Woonsocket primarily. And Ginger herself wouldn't be able to get out to every community and hit every pond and swamp and stream and river all over the state in 40 years, let alone in 5 years.
Right.
Well, I'm an obsessed bird watcher and have been for about 20 years. And that's how I describe myself. But I also volunteer with the Nature Conservancy and a variety of other projects. And when Ginger was announcing that she was going to start this dragonfly census, she was looking for volunteers. And I said, sure, I'll help. I didn't know much about dragonflies. I knew that they were around. I kind of liked watching them. I had the same stories as a kid about them biting and doing other strange things. But as soon as I got involved and started to catch them, it really hooked me. And I've sort of given up the birds for now, and I'm stuck on dragonflies and just love it. Just for the sport and the enjoyment of it, let alone the fact that it's contributing something significant to science and the Nature Conservancy and protection of endangered species.
The Blackstone, if you look at Rhode Island rivers, most of them are small. In fact, really the only large river that we have is the Blackstone. And therefore, there are some species which occur here, and they may not occur in other rivers in the state because those rivers are too small, they don't have the right microhabitat in the bottom of the river or a fast enough flow for certain species. We do have a small damselfly, which is recorded here and only here for the state. We have only one location. And when I actually, the first year I worked on the Blackstone, I collected 4 species here which had never been reported in Rhode Island before, again, because it's really the only example we have of a truly large river. The important take-home message is the full circle of this project. It starts with the field work, and what we learn through the field work and all the efforts of the volunteers will be applied to conservation actions. And we already are using the data that we've gathered both last year and already this year in applying it to our conservation planning and our conservation actions in the state.
Which means essentially purchasing open space and,
Right.
and natural habitat, land that contains these natural habitats to save the rare species.
In order to protect rare species, you need to know what they are and where they're located and how rare or common they may be. And with dragonflies, there's no such data really out there until we are collecting it.
And as a volunteer, Todd, how does it make you feel when you make that contribution?
Well, that's really my greatest passion, is trying to protect endangered species. And so whatever I can do to help out makes me feel pretty good, and more important, protects those species.
Missed. But tell you what, once you stay tuned, we have an important public service announcements. They're your friends, your neighbors. You see them at church, they coach your kids' Little League team. They're your local fire and rescue squad. They're professionals. They have a tough, demanding job. Don't meet them professionally. Paddle smart. Wear your life jacket. Ever tried paddling upstream in a canoe? Well, that can be downright exhausting. Now think about those poor anatomous fish who swim upstream to spawn. It's a workout for you. You know, we don't see too many river herring, alewives, or Atlantic salmon around here anymore. Ever thought about why not? Well, it's part of the legacy of the Industrial Revolution. It's that dam behind us. When they swim upstream to spawn, they can't get over the dam. But I tell you what, over on the 10-mile river in East Providence, the river herring are getting some assistance from some friends to get over the dam.
We do this because if we don't do this, sooner or later the heaven will be gone and they won't come back because they can't get up the falls over here.
Well, Chuck, if we don't do it, or if a lot of us like us don't do it, then over the period of time we'll all pay for it because the fish just won't be there.
Like, I'm a fisherman. I come and get my bait here. From here I go to the ocean. I go fishing. I like it. I like the sport. We catch the herring, we throw them over the side too. Everything's a sport.
Now we're getting close to high tide. Now what's the strategy here? What are you trying to do?
Scoop.
Scoop, just...
One guy goes down, one gets on the next step, and you scoop, you hand the net up to the next guy, and one guy hands you the other net, and you just keep scooping. I bring them over the dam along with the fishermen, the recreational fishermen, that is. And we try to keep the population going that way. There's no way for the heaven to get above unless we help them.
That's right. A lot of heavy water over here, and they just can't jump over the dam.
No, there's times we see them scaling up so far, and then you see them go back down. There's too much water coming over. Back in the 60s, there was no heaven here. You could come down here and scoop over here for 20, 30 days. If you found 2 or 3 heaven, you'd be lucky. And my brother lived over on Glenwood Avenue, right on the banks of the 10-mile river. And one day it was by accident. We were bass fishing. We came home. We were going to go back that evening. We had live herring. And his wife said, we were bait men, said we had to deliver some bait. So instead of letting the herring die, we threw them over. And as we dumped them into the 10-mile river, the light bulb went off, you know. Whoa, wait a second. So that night we went up to Middle Ball. Brought some back. We went to Taunton River and Ashton. We got some there. And we went all over. And we would bring them back and dump them behind his house. And that's how we brought the population back.
No kidding.
Since then, we'd come down here, scoop them back over the side. Now I don't have to do like I used to. I used to try to get here at least for 2 hours a day in the old days, scooping herring. Because there was no one here, no one knew about it. And throwing them over the banks. And it was tough all along.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a fairly physical activity, isn't it?
Oh yes, it is. When I leave here today after scooping herring, it's right down, lay down, because my back is killing me.
It must be.
Being a sports fisherman, I'd like to have bait for years and years to come in the future. Plus, no one wants to see an entire species wiped out. So, if you take a couple and throw some over, you're doing a service for yourself and a service for the environment.
We try to lift the fish, as many as we can, over the dam into the fresh water, and they swim upstream and they spawn. As you can see, this is a pretty rough falls, and with all the rain that we've had, there's a lot of water going over there, a lot of pressure for the fish to try to get up in there.
This is an ideal place. The main reason is they're coming fresh off the ocean, entering the bay. They're not going up on any shallow water. They're not scraping their bellies and so forth. They come in here, they're fresh. When we grab them, we put them over back in here in the Omega Pond, and they swim up the 10 Mile River, and they spawn. And I'll say we got a good survivor population out of what we put over. We'd like to see a fish ladder here, and that's what the reason is for the publicity. I've been working with Save the Bay, 10 Mile River Association. Now I made them aware of what we have here, and I believe this would be the cheapest place to put a dam out of the two rivers.
Right.
Blackstone and here. And once we get one here, then let's work on the Blackstone.
Right. No, it makes sense. Because you only need one here, you need about 4.
Well, actually, to get the full amount of herring that could spawn, this river could spawn about, I think they say 250,000 herring could handle, if we can get them up in the Turner Reservoir. But let's build this one first, work on getting a fish ladder at the Turner Reservoir Dam. And the Hunts Mill, I believe that's just a natural waterway for them. I believe with a couple of boulders put here and there, they'll get up in there.
Who's going to help him grab that?
If we can get fish ladders, that'll save a species forever.
Well, this has been Ranger Chuck Arning of the National Park Service here in the John H. Chafee Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor. And you know, our buddy Humpty Dumpty, I think he's beyond our help. But our environment is not. Those willful acts of good deeds by the people of Blackstone Valley, assisting Mother Nature's critters to survive, it's a good lesson for us all. You see, a healthy habitat for wildlife and humans requires a good maintenance program. Not just a once-a-day Earth Day type of project, but a 365 days a year type of project. And it can be fun. So our hats are off to all those folks who make it part of their lifestyle to recycle, reuse, and renew. That's the way to go. So until next time, hope to see you in the valley.